Video games have evolved a lot during the years. Way back in the day, games on the Genesis or Super Nintendo only had 4 megabytes of data. Some of this data was used for music and other game sounds. Let's check out how that worked way back then. The Genesis had something called GEMS to program its music. This interface was made to be more like an actual music program instead of a coder like the Super Nintendo and Nintendo Entertainment System used. Of course Sega had to do what Nintendo don't. GEMS, while also being named as a tribute to the Sonic the Hedgehog games, stood for Genesis Editor for music and sound effects. Here's an example of some music created with this program. The Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES for short, had 5 sound channels, and because of this, couldn't play more than 5 sounds at one time, and never more than 5 parts. It's kind of like a keyboard my little brother uses. The keyboard has only 2 audio channels, so it can't play 3 notes at the same time. The NES's 5 channels were stuck to the one instrument the channel could play. That's why a lot of music from the NES sounds similar. The rhythm might be different, but the sounds are still the same beeps and boops. The first channel produces a square-shaped wave. There are 3 settings: 12.5, 25, and 50. There are actually 2 channels like this, and they are typically used for the melody. You can hear it in the Overworld theme for The Legend of Zelda. The third channel creates a triangle wave. This only has one setting, and the volume cannot be changed. It is usually used for bass lines in NES music. You can hear it in the underground theme for Super Mario Bros. The fourth channel is a noise channel. It sounds like the static from a television or radio. It has 16 different pitches and 2 different modes. One that sounds like the static, and one that sounds sort of metallic. This makes for a total of 32 different sounds. The metallic one is used less often, but you can hear it in Quickman Stage from Mega Man 2. The fifth and final channel is a sampling channel, and you could import custom sounds. This was usually used for percussion. One example of this is the steel drums from Super Mario Bros. 3 Overworld. The Super Nintendo had 8 audio channels, quite the upgrade from the NES, and all 8 of those were sampling channels. Despite all this, long and complex waves still weren't possible. The Super Nintendo had 64 4 kilobytes for RAM. Now, let me give you a picture of just how big this number is. Imagine your average 3-minute MP3 file, which is about 6 megabytes, and divide it by 100. That's not much. Now, imagine that you would have to fit 3 hours of music under that little space. Yeah, I'll let that sink in. This is why you couldn't have those long waves. Because of the little space, waves had to be tiny. In the Super Nintendo, there were 2 sound chips, the SPC 700 and the DSP. The SPC 700 read the music, like a composer, and told the DSP what sounds to play. The SPC 700 was a separate computing unit, so it took the weight away from the CPU. The music that the SPC 700 read was unlike any music a pianist would play from. It was just numbers. These numbers were made in a music tracker. A music tracker was a simple program that turned music into letters and numbers. The track that you are hearing right now is called Aquatic Ambience, and it was composed by David Wise. Some of the sound waves you are hearing are actually long and complex. Remember when I said that wasn't possible? Well, it wasn't possible to sample one, but it is possible to play one. David Wise took inspiration from the Korg Wave Station and its wave sequencing feature. He strung together smaller waves to create longer waves. Video game music has gone a long way, and composers like David Wise and their incredible persistence need to be highlighted. The accomplishment of these people may just be beeps and boops, but the next time you hear one of these infamous songs, stop and take a moment to think about the dedication it took to create these songs.